Hello, everyone. My name is Jacob Newsom with Power of the Narrative, and we are here with a special guest, Courtney Navarro. Um, and so, before I get started, I want to say hi to my fans from Peru, the UK, and Spain. I'm very surprised that Power of the Narrative has gone global, and definitely to my American fans. I appreciate everybody that's listening, and I hope you've had a great time listening to us reclaim our truths and rewrite our narrative so far. So, Courtney, do you want to give a brief introduction about yourself?
Yeah, so I am currently working on getting some writing out and just trying to reach people. I've had a bit of a wild ride through life and unfortunately had to deal with a lot of trauma and healing that trauma while trying to manage being a single mom and all the other things that pop up with life and all of the other pitfalls that come along with that. So I've written for a really long time and I felt compelled to put it out there just to kind of give voice to anyone who never knew how to put the words to what they were feeling or make them feel seen or validated and just kind of be that lighthouse.
Yeah, and if you haven't looked at Courtney's poetry yet, it is amazing. We will have to. I'm gonna link your TikTok at the end of this episode too. But amazing poetry, and I found a lot of your poetry through like narcissist stuff when I was talking about my ex and my mom, and I was posting poetry on TikTok. And so there's something when we were talking about making this episode. There's something you said hit me like a lightning bolt. It was pretty much in essence, trauma didn't make me stronger; it damaged me. About that, is that about right?
Yes, absolutely.
Can you expand more on what you meant by that and what that looks like for you?
Yeah. So I honestly hate when people say that your trauma made you stronger because personally, if you were to ask me, it messed me up pretty well in a lot of ways. My trauma made me feel bad for people who were the ones hurting me. My trauma made me not trust my own voice, my own thoughts. My trauma made me not trust my own gut, my own instincts. My trauma made me believe that I had to be uh, basically productive or giving someone something to mean anything. My trauma made me believe that I wasn't worthy of love unless I had earned it. So my trauma put me through all of these experiences where I was just pouring out all the time and I wasn't getting anything back. And it left me to a point where I was drained and I felt like I was failing because I couldn't continue just giving, and I was never enough for people who, quite frankly, were just the wrong people to even try to give anything to. So I think had I not experienced so much trauma and had more self-love and had that build up as a kid and somebody that showed me it's okay to love yourself regardless of what you're giving, I think it would have steered me away from a lot of the things that I actually did go through. And my trauma definitely sent me running right into the arms of all of the crazy that came to follow after childhood.
Yeah, it sounds like you're pretty much saying trauma made you feel unworthy, and
Yes.
I like that theme you mentioned about how you felt like you had to earn something, you had to earn love. Why do you think it is that people romanticize pain when trauma so badly? There's like a trauma to triumph pipeline that people don't really talk about. I
hmm
feel like why do you think that's like a thing?
I don't know if it's maybe, I think that a lot of people, they like to see the triumph at the end and romanticize that because in society, I think we are so scared of being raw and actually being honest and authentic in our feelings.
Yes.
Because I feel like if you really look at it, if I showed you my whole journey of how I got here, you'd be like, stop it, knock it off, let it go. You need to forget about that
Yes.
stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but if I tell you, if I stand here strong today and say I've overcome all these things, you're going to, everyone's clapping. But it's like, it's kind of like that thing where, you make it to the top of the mountain and everybody's cheering, but nobody was cheering while you were climbing. You know what I mean? So it's always that maybe even kind of like a hero complex. Like you want to be able to say like I overcame all of these things and I'm so strong, and it's like by all means you are for surviving that, but um, all of the shit you had to go through to get there, you didn't deserve it. And I think we leave that part out of it entirely, and that's what causes that romanticism, even in like the hyper independence and things that you get from that trauma, like, oh, I don't need anyone and all of those things. Those aren't good things. And I'm still working through reminding myself that as well, like not romanticizing my own trauma responses, really, in
Yeah.
always needing to do everything on my own and not trusting anyone to get jobs done or, be there for me.
Yeah, man, I'm really glad you said that too. Because I think there's a part of this, there's a twofold thing where it's like I feel like people. First, I think there's like a threshold to how much people actually want to hear about how much you're going through. So there's like a
Yes.
low appetite, low tolerance for suffering in our society. But also, it's like this thing of like, for me, it was like, how do I move past my trauma? How do I live a life that's like, I'm not gonna say normal per se, but like when you talk about hyper independence, it was like a path for me to learn to trust people, and it was so ingrained in my body and mind. I was like, I'm not hyper independent. I'm very reliant on people, not
Yeah.
knowing that like my hyper independence is actually self sabotage too. So it's how did you learn to like over time trust people and like kind of I'm gonna say shift out of your trauma narrative. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So, full honesty, I think the biggest and hardest part was learning to trust myself first. Because I think that once I had actually removed myself from that situation and those abusers, I didn't trust my own judgment. I didn't trust myself. I was like, I can't even be around people because, like, my judgment is terrible. Why would I trust these people? Why would I open up to these people that did all these terrible things to me? Um, so that to me was the biggest part is that I had to learn to trust myself and trust my instinct and actually listen to it because when you're with narcissistic individuals or like you're with prolonged abuse, I don't know that people really understand the extent of like the mental warfare that you're under in those
Yeah.
circumstances. And then they become like the voice that you're fighting inside your own head. So you have to find that balance first. Which voice is mine? What is my actual instinct? And then once I learned to do that and trust myself, that's when I started to learn to trust and lean in and be like, hey, you know what? I can't carry this all by myself. I need a little bit of help. Or even if I just need someone to bounce my ideas off of, or hey, what do you think is the best way to approach this situation? I had to really lean in, and it was a little bit scary. But once I had fully dived in and felt confident in being able to distinguish the ones that meant well and the ones that just wanted to hear my misery, that's how I finally moved on and then was able to finally, put a little faith in people and feel like somebody was going to have my back.
I like that you make that distinction too, because that reminds me that, on my path to healing, I realized that sometimes the people I went to for support weren't actually that supportive, whether they knew it or not. They give me feedback that wasn't really that great, or they would withhold feedback and watch me walk into dangerous situations, and then they'd be like, "Oh, I kind of knew that would go that way," and I'm like, "Well, what the fuck use are you to
Because
me?" You know?
yeah, misery loves company. So there are going to be those people that they want to hear that from you because some people love to have someone else walking through misery because it makes them, I don't know how. I would
I
imagine
don't know
that,
how.
that's got to be a miserable way to feel. But,
Yeah.
some people want to see that and they will watch you walk into these dangerous situations. And so, yeah, that's exactly it is that, like you feel like you can rely on them, but you just watched me like, step on a nail and you saw it
Yes.
coming and didn't even warn me that it was there. So, yep, I get
Yes.
it.
Yeah, and that's what I learned too. Is that like I'm more discernful now. Not necessarily distrusting, but definitely just like, are they gonna give me what I need, or can I just do that for myself? Like, and so I keep my circle small, and I know you hear that a lot. But
Yes.
it's about quality versus quantity, and it's about like how much does that person show up for me, and can I
Mm-hmm.
trust that? And so a lot of people nowadays won't really hear like the full scope of my life as much because the more you open up, the more scrutiny that puts on you, and then unsolicited advice, and so for me, part of healing was like cleaning up my circles and knowing who to keep here in proximity and who to keep far outside of
Right.
proximity. And
Mm.
this doesn't mean they're bad people. It just means that you're not my people.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Not everyone can be close. Some people are fun to socialize with, but they're not the ones you want to, bare your entire soul to. So I get that.
Exactly. So what happened for you when you stopped giving credit to your trauma if you ever did. When you stop saying like, "Damn, this didn't make me stronger. This actually fucked me up." What was the transformation for you?
It was really empowering, actually, because I spent a lot of time crediting my trauma because that's the mindset everyone, tries to sell you is that like, well, if you didn't have that trauma, you wouldn't be who you are. And it's like, I don't think that that's necessarily true because I had to step outside of my trauma. And this was like a pretty painful experience, to go through I was like, who am I? Like, who am I? If I take away the abusers, if I take away my trauma, if I take away those experiences that someone else, unfortunately forced me to go through, and take away, my professional life as well, like who's Courtney? And so that's when I dived deep, and I was like, I'm actually like, I don't mean this to say egotistical or anything like I'm floating my own boat, but like I am a good person, like I care. I'm the kind of person that when I have your back, I have your back all the way. Like when I love hard. I have taken, less for myself to give more to anyone else who needed it. And I've always been that person that any situation that I've ever been through, if I know someone who's, nearing it or going through it, I'm going to be the one that's there for you. Like, I don't want you to go through that alone. I don't want people to hurt. Like, I'm very much an empath, like I feel for other people. And so that's when I finally realized that, like, that's me. That's my heart. That's not from the trauma because a lot of people will take that trauma and then use it to repeat cycles and to hurt other people and use it for the excuses, and those kinds of things. But who I was as a person never went away. She just had to hide and survive. So that's how I learned basically was to separate myself from the trauma and then give myself the credit for who I am, deep down as a person.
Right. Okay. So you pretty much had to learn who you were inside, and it sounds like there's like a separation where it was like, I'm not this, but I am this at my core, and it was like who am I at my core? This is what we build up from.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Because there was a lot of, I think, when you're going through the trauma, there's shame that comes with it, and so you kind of hide and you project. I don't know that, necessarily, I can't speak, everyone's got the same experience, but I was very polished on the outside. I was embarrassed. I didn't want to be honest sometimes with what I was going through. So that's who I was. I was that professional that you saw, or I was just that mom or just the wife, but I was never Courtney. And so that's what, yes, absolutely. I had to finally learn who I was and then be proud of me as a person and my qualities, what I actually give to people. And then that's when I could take the credit instead of letting the trauma take the credit, because I wouldn't have been so hyper independent or so leery to trust people had that trauma not happened, for so long in my life.
It sounds like when I'm talking to you too, there's like a fragmentation of like, this is who I am, mom, wife, professional, and it sounds like you went through this integration now. That we were all in an integration cycle, but you integrated yourself, and so you went from different roles to Courtney Navarro,
Yes.
and so I think that's a beautiful thing, and I gotta say integration is a lifetime thing too, because like with me, like there was like just like with you, son, student, friend, but I've noticed interestingly, depending on the friend, I changed personalities. It
Yep.
was weird. It was like I was taking
You're
my
adapting.
personality. Exactly. It was so weird. And now my personality stays about the same with everyone now, but I
Mm-hmm.
still have that because I'm a recovering people pleaser from the people pleasing community.
Yes.
Um,
Yep.
it's weird. Like that morphing thing is how I can mirror people now in the sense where I can hold space. Like
Yes.
it's very easy to like now hold space and not lose myself anymore, but not. I think it's a beautiful thing. Like, and so like
Mm-hmm.
when you mentioned the fragments, that's where my mind went. I was like, okay, Courtney integrated. Like that's beautiful.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I guess I didn't think of it that way, but I like to say a lot now. I am me, no matter what room I'm walking into from now on. Like it or not, this is
Yeah.
who I am, and I will take it or leave it, whatever way you decide. So, but yeah,
I
someone
love it.
else's opinion of me is not my responsibility. I'm just going to be authentic, and I like me at the end of the day now,
Yeah.
so that's good enough.
I like it. I like it. And by the way, I love you. By the way, you're
Thank you.
Um,
Likewise.
Thank you. I have some harder questions to ask, and just let me know if these are triggering. We won't go over them, but
Yeah.
when did you realize the story you were living wasn't actually yours?
It took me a lot longer than it should have. I would say honestly, it was the pregnancy with my last pregnancy. I had gone through right before I got pregnant. I was working really hard to get healthy, work on myself, and I realized that the person I was with didn't like that. And then it started like and there were, you're not working out well enough, or this isn't the right way to do it, or if you work out and you lose weight, you better not leave me, or you have a good job now, so you think you can leave me because you'll make good money. And then it was just kind of like it finally came full circle that it's like, this is why I have stayed here and just accepted being miserable, because like any attempt I make at trying to get better was an offense to the person that I was with. And I think it was, I had a lot of that weaponized incompetence that some people do, where it was like I took the overload. Like uh, there were situations that I finally looked back on and like, what the hell am I doing? Um, I unfortunately, and I apologize if this is like triggering as well, but I was actually pregnant with twins and one didn't make it. So it was a really, really hard pregnancy because I kept going between grieving, but then still being happy because I still had, one. Um, and I had to navigate that entirely alone. And I think that was when I finally realized, like, I'm raising three other kids and I'm still navigating this. I'm still working full time and powering through alone. And I think that it finally snapped, like right there. I realized, why would I keep putting more work on myself and keeping these people around instead of just going and living my life in peace? So yeah, that was kind of like my pivotal moment. Obviously, I had a new baby and it was a lot going on. It was when COVID had just first hit, and so it was an experience. And I tried to do the right thing, and everybody else's sense was just get through it and make it better and work through it. But it didn't get better. It never did. There was, to kind of like paint a picture, I would be working full time, coming home to my children. I was the one that was also in charge of like yard work. I would have to take my baby in a stroller and push a lawnmower. You know what I mean? Like I was literally pulling the weight for the entire home, and I was finally like, this is not how I want to live. Like this is ridiculous. Like it's actually easier for me to be a single woman than it was to be married.
That's
So
what I was gonna
what was the
say.
point?
That was
Yes.
he's a deadbeat pretty much.
Yes, yes, it was awful, and that's why I said like that weaponized incompetence, because like, it's really common that they will just drain you to the point that like you don't have anything left to fight back. You're just accepting it because you're so depleted. And I finally realized that that's how I'd been living for so long, and I'm like, oh no, this is not okay. And then this sounds funny, but when that Amber Heard and Johnny Depp,
I remember
everything
that.
blew up. Yeah, that was a pivotal moment for me too, because I finally looked at it and I was like, oh, so not everybody has all these toxic things that they hide at home. Like this isn't, what everybody does. And I think it was a lot because I never had that healthy dynamic to model or modeled to me as a child. So I had no idea what it was supposed to look like. So I just took it for what it was. And so I had that mounting, and then that hit, and I was like, oh, see, I was right. Like, this isn't healthy. I need to get out of here. And it propelled me, and I kept trusting myself more and more to the point that I was like, no, this isn't serving me. I have to go.
Wow. First of all, I gotta say, wow, like that is a powerful story. Not wow in the sense it's overwhelming, but it's like powerful because what you pretty much saying is like you held it down at the house. Basically, and like I feel like when you're unpacking trauma from like your childhood and stuff, and then you're dealing with a full time narcissist, and you're still
Yeah.
so it's amazing you were even able to hold down your kids and the household and yourself most times. And I gotta
Thank you.
pat you on the back for that, and also acknowledge that that's a painful experience to go through. Like,
Yeah.
um, dude. So it's like, so I'm glad that you were able to. I'm glad that was your first moment of consciousness in your story where you're like, this is not right. And I want to share too that like when I I have to expand on this in another podcast. I have a lot of points I have to expand on other podcasts, but
Yeah.
when I had to go to the police on my mom this year because she was financially extorting me, and when I went to the police to make the report, they actually gave me like a whole packet on like domestic violence and stuff like that. And I didn't know this, but kids that grow up in homes of like with abusive parents actually end up more than likely end up in partnerships with abusive people. And so I had I got that packet when I was with my ex, and I was like, oh shit, like I fit 7 out of 8 of these signs outside of him trying to hit me, which
Yep.
um, but,
Abuse is abuse, physical or mental. So
yes,
yes,
physical, mental, sexual, like, but
financial, all of them. Yeah.
my ex he leaned on uh, the emotional side of it the most, and his family has a pattern of financial abuse, so I could see that. I um I want to ask you too, like, so I know you mentioned emotional manipulation and emotional abuse throughout this. How is it that emotional abuse reshaped your reality um, right before you became conscious of your actual story? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So how did that kind of form my strength to leave? If I'm understanding the question correctly, am I?
Uh,
Or sorry if I'm not.
it's that's partly on me
Okay.
because I need to form a new question. How did emotional manipulation play a role in you staying in the story longer?
Oh gosh. Um, a huge role. So I should have left so much sooner. It was physically abusive. You know, originally, there were times where I thought I was going to die. I thought I was going to die. There were attempts for that to happen. But then there was always but I got beat as a child, or I'm sad because of this, and I'm hurt because of this, and then that's why I did this to you, and I just need someone to love me. And then me having been a child that I went through so much traumatic things, and then I still loved people and I still wanted to be a good person, so I just believed that everybody else did. And that's one of those things where I say that trauma screws you up so bad because you believe that everybody else just needs to be saved as well, but not everybody wants to be saved. They just want to some of them want to take you down with them, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and so once the physical abuse kind of like subsided, I wouldn't say that it ever like truly stopped. It definitely decreased and it was less severe. But it was always, I just need you to do this for me. I just need you to do this for me. And if you were better at this, I could be better at this for you. And then, but I don't hit you anymore. I'm not beating you anymore. And so there was always that guilt trip and like all the time, just leave me. Everybody else always just leaves me, you know, and like
Oh my
nobody ever
god.
just really loves me. Yeah, that, you know,
Same.
and so yes, all those things. And then, so my two oldest children are not biologically mine. They had, unfortunately, very traumatic childhood as well. And so that I think was weaponized against me for the emotional manipulation as well, because it was like me trying to save my child. So, you know, my own inner child. There's these two children. They need someone who's going to stand up, do the right thing, and fight for them. And I was like, I will, you know, like somebody needs to do it. And then so there was always that, but they're not really yours, and you can't discipline them, and you're being too mean, and you're not being a good enough mom. And it was always like I was trying to jump through these hoops that just kept moving. Because I tried everything. I tried being the really cute mom that stayed home and baked all the cookies with the kids, and I did all of these things, and that wasn't good enough. So then I was the professional, you know, chasing a career, and that wasn't good enough. And it was always this cycle of that was what I told you, but you didn't do it right. So now I need you to do this better and then this better. And then I think that it got to the point that I was literally so just just beat down and mentally drained that I didn't even process what I was actually being manipulated to anymore. I was just trying to survive. I got to the point that I was dissociating so bad that I would be at home, I'd be cleaning, and there would be like things going on, you know, kids screaming, and I'm like, I'm there and I'm managing, but I'm completely actually gone somewhere else. Like I've got the kids, yep, that one needed a cup, or this one was hungry and needed a snack, but I don't actually remember being in those situations. Like I was completely gone, and that was one of the things I had to regain with leaving was how do I get back? How do I be present? How do I come back to the moment and stop hiding away? Because not everybody is going to try to emotionally manipulate me and make me feel worthless. So,
Yeah. And thank you for sharing that, by the way, because that takes a lot of vulnerability and courage. And given what you've gone through, because there's a lot of parallels with me too. When like my mom put me fucking through it. Like,
yeah.
do I wish for a better mom? Yes, and I grieve that every day. Um, Same thing with my ex. Do I wish I could have had a better boyfriend and had a productive relationship? Absolutely, I grieve that too. And
Mhm.
like with that being said, like it makes sense for people like us to be very self-protective after those experiences. For you, like it sounds like you trusted him so much, you gave him a lot of chances, and that whole thing where they're like, oh my god, yes, I abused you, but pity me. I I think the best thing that I've heard is that yes, like you're yes you have trauma, but so do I. We just took two different paths. Like my trauma
Yep.
inspired me to protect and heal people. Yours inspired you to destroy and abuse people. So when narcissists pull that oh woe is me story, it's kind of like it falls on deaf ears now because and I didn't used to be like I didn't used to be this callous, but I'm also just like, you're not phasing me anymore. Like I don't feel sorry for you, like because I have
Yeah.
a similar background, and guess what? I don't put my hands on people. I don't lash out because I can regulate my emotions. I went to therapy and
Mhm.
I did all the work. If I have something, I'm going to put it in my journal, keep it to myself, go burn it or something, or go vent. But it's like it's never really about how do I say? Not never. When you're mad, it's never really about that person, so don't take it out on that person. And I feel like the thing he's missing is that you gave him plenty of chances to change. And with that being said, I can see how when people tell you how it makes you stronger, they don't see the erosion underneath the story where every time it's a damaging narrative to keep peddling that this stuff makes you stronger. Yeah, maybe if I got hit by a car and but
Right.
but that's not this. You were hit by like a mental nuke, which is your ex-husband and then your family. So tell me about how you got to tap into your rage more. Like what did it look like for you when you finally gave yourself permission to be mad without apology?
Oh my gosh. It was really overwhelming. Um, because I think initially a lot of the rage was actually at myself. Because I had finally realized that I had allowed so much and I didn't love myself enough to get myself out of those situations. So, in all honesty, it was incredibly overwhelming and it was very, very painful because with that, with releasing all of the rage, I also had to understand that there were a lot of emotions I didn't understand because the only safe emotion I had had for so long was anger. That's the only one I was ever allowed to show because that's what everybody else was showing. Um, so I had to really sit with that anger in a lot of ways and ask myself, like, why am I actually angry? Like, what am I masking? Um, is this grief? Is this me feeling shame? Is this guilt? And then I was also angry at myself because I feel like when you're in a prolonged situation where it's literally dangerous, like you're sustaining all these abusive situations and um, you you don't walk out of it being a cookie cutter, super sweet person. There's parts where I had to show my teeth to survive it.
Yeah,
And so I was angry that I allowed myself to ever get to that point to fight back. I wouldn't say I was like abusive or like I was trying to be malicious, but I was definitely trying to survive. And I did what I had to do in some certain situations to um, defend myself. So that was I think the hardest thing was learning what those emotions actually were out of that anger and then learning how to channel that anger into becoming healthier and becoming more emotionally intelligent and in tune with myself. And then I think a lot of the anger was just purely anger at the people who had done all of those things to me. And then that, like looking back, I'm like, why would you do that to a person? And
Exactly.
just, yeah, there was a lot of elements to that. I got to a point where I was like very ill while I was processing it initially because I was in that relationship for 15 years. Prior to that, I had not so great childhood that led me, straight into this. And so I ended up losing like 60 pounds within a couple months. My hair was falling out. My body was rejecting food. And it was literally like everything just started to shut down because on top of all of the stress with trying to rebuild my life, I was finally feeling emotions again. I didn't know what half of it was, and I didn't know how to sort them. So I literally had to go and, reach out for therapy and talk to my doctor so I could get, medications to help me be able to like hold down food and not just completely deplete myself in every aspect possible. So it was painful, and I won't lie about it. It was painful, but I will say that that pain was worth it compared to a lot of this pain I've had in my life. That pain I would walk through again to get to where I am today. That was meaningful pain, and I'm glad that I really sat with it and I endured it to get to the other side.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference too. Is like because I feel like my ex. A lot of people actually in society are very avoidant of growth pain. Like the pain you're talking about is the pain that inspires the most change versus the pain that people put you through, which sets you back. And
Yes.
so I like that you mentioned the anger and how you had anger at yourself. Because for me, what was important was like learning how to learning tools for shame, like learning how to name it, learning how to sit with it. Because I do self compassion exercises from like Kristen Neff. She has like a whole website full of meditations, but uh, it took me like a year or so to override that really override that shame mechanism, especially when a lot of trauma comes up. Because with me, I was like, why the fuck did I stay with my ex so long? Like I could have left way earlier. And
Right.
but I think what we're missing sometimes is like the hope we had, the the hope we had for them, the care we had, and we thought that they would change. And sometimes it's easier to stay in a relationship than get out at the time. Like there's a lot of factors that we don't consider in our trauma minds because
Mhm.
like all we consider is that this is my fault. In some way this is my fault. I could have prevented this. Like that's the running narrative. And so for me, it looked like metabolizing my shame, and then also I suppressed my anger a lot, and that came from my own experience of like growing up with my mom, and then being in society like as a black man, like you look too angry, people feel like they're threatened, and so I have like I think I had told you when we first got on the podcast that I went to my backyard and I got a bat and I started beating stuff in my backyard because my therapist he was like, well, what is your rage ritual? And I was like, suppressing it. That's my ritual. And
Yeah.
I was like, well, I meditate. And he was like, actually, queer men meditate to suppress their anger, or they bypass their anger. And I was like, oh, so when anger comes up, I need to be getting it out. And it's so funny that now that I'm connected with my anger more, that helps me reinforce my boundaries better. Because I
Yes.
had a hard time with boundaries in the past, but now that I'm connected to my anger, I'm kind of like, oh no, that thing you said, no. That thing you're doing, no. Um, and it's actually such a visceral feeling because that anger comes up in my body, and it's almost like I can't not enforce set boundary, or I can't not speak up for myself. And so, people with trauma, when we're taught like don't be angry, like we should be making peace with it, we should be forgiving it, we should be XYZ. It's actually telling you, you're actually missing a very important component of like your healing, which is be in touch with your anger, be okay with it. The healing looks messy
Yep.
for a reason.
Exactly. I think, yeah, like to your point too, is that anger, once you get to a healing point where you're processing that trauma, your anger actually becomes like your protector. because you learn how to harness it. You know, like you learn how to understand it, you learn how to say, like, hear what it's actually trying to tell you, and then you understand it as I'm angry because this is an injustice, and I'm allowed to say that it is, and I don't have to pretend it's not anymore. You know, so it's like I'm angry that somebody would do something so terrible, and that's okay to be angry, and so you can stand on it a little bit easier and not be guilt tripped into looking past it for someone, like you know, in your people pleasing days.
I like that. I like that. I want to ask too, like, how is it that you kind of address the shame that comes up, or you metabolize it?
Um, I still actively am in therapy. I had to seek out a specific like trauma therapist, and then I did I did get diagnosed with a complex post traumatic stress disorder just from having
Me too.
so much. Yeah, so you get it.
Yeah.
So to be completely honest with you, education was the most crucial part of my healing journey in a whole, and learning the shame from it, because uh, I don't have to carry shame for what someone else did, and I can understand now a little bit of like how their brain works and the way that they were perceiving what was happening, um, and I don't perceive it that way. And that's actually a great thing, you know? Being able to not understand how someone can be so nasty or so cruel to someone is one of the things that gives me hope as well, and then kind of releases that shame of what I did sustain or allow to happen. Because that means I'm never going to be like them. And that's one of the things I think that keeps me going, is that no matter how hard it got, I never turned nasty. I never turned cold hearted. I never wanted to hurt somebody out of my own pain. And I think that is the most freeing part of the shame for me personally, is that I sustained it, I went through it, and I allowed more than I should have, but I still didn't let it harden me.
I think that's the beautiful thing is that you kept your heart intact while being burned through fire, and like and that's a key example is that like you go through something like that and it makes you a better person and it makes you want to work on yourself more. Somebody else goes through something like that and they become a narcissist, and it's always just like, well, how do two people raised in the same environment or in the same environment become totally different people? And so,
Yep.
because I mean, like with me, like my ex and I came from similar backgrounds. The only thing that probably distinguishes us is that his family is like affluent. But
Mm.
like I gotta be honest with you, with the richer guys that I've dated, like rich people have like a lot of like family secrets, and I don't know why. They're always dark secrets, and they're always covering up something. But like he wouldn't for the longest time admit that his family was abusive, and I don't know what it is, but like we went through two different paths. I think there's a reason why we got together, and I think it's because like he was like we connected on a friend level. I just think in the end that what happens in romantic relationships is that they touch so much on our parental wounds that it's kind of like at a certain point you need to be actively in therapy, you need to be working on this, like you need to be doing that, or else you're going to project all that shit onto the person you love. And so for me, what's coming up for me is like, oh, like your shit reminds me so much of my mom, like. So I would ice him out. Like when we get in arguments, I would like shut down, ice him out, especially after the third, fourth, fifth time of me saying something and he keeps doing it, I would just be like, fuck it, I'm just gonna ignore you. I know it hurts your feelings. It's okay because I'm gonna blow up on you if I don't ignore you. And so that's something I take ownership of now, and I talked about, in therapy. And so it is one of those things where it's like I admit to myself my work is not done, but I'm doing it. And when you mentioned the CPTSD thing, I was like, yep, right here with you, right here with you. That's why I stay on my work, I stay on my shit, stay in journaling, stay in meditations, and
Yes.
the ADHD part of it makes it worse. And I'm pretty sure
Mhm.
I'm creeping up on an OCD diagnosis pretty soon. But
Sounds about right. Yeah.
you know,
Yep.
like all that being
All
said,
those things. Yes.
yes. But it's like I admire your transparency because it's like like people need to know what CPTSD even is. Like it's
Yes.
like regular PTSD is just like you have a car crash and then you're traumatized by that event. But CPTSD is the repetitive, like and not,
Hmm.
not not a lot of people know that. They just think they're fucking crazy.
Yeah, I thought I was crazy for a really long time. And so that's where I think the education piece, like I mentioned earlier, was like so important for me because it literally rewires the way that your brain works. Like this isn't just something, like in your head, you're not just sad or, stuck somewhere. Like your brain has actually had to alter the way that it functions in order to survive. And that's a huge deprogramming to go through. And there's so many
Yes.
different experiences and therapy techniques you have to go through. And it's terrifying because you have to completely rip back open all of the trauma that you had suppressed for so long.
Hmm.
And so it's like it's reopening all of those wounds. It's incredibly painful. It's like opening up floodgates and then just letting everything come running
Yes.
through, and you're trying to process it. And like this time, you have to face it head on and heal it, because otherwise, if you just, lock it back up,
It ain't
now that
going
it's going
nowhere.
to come back and it's going to hit you right in the face. So
It ain't
it's
going
like
nowhere.
this time you stand and fight.
And
Yep.
I love that you're saying that too, because that's exactly what trauma informed therapy does. It helps us process the memory and gives us the tools to do it.
Yes.
Um, so it's funny is I'm glad you mentioned this. So I'm a part of like Mankind Project. I don't know if I told you about, but it's like a male-centered emotional intelligence organization, basically.
I
So
love that.
I went to this training to like how to scramble traumatic memories. And so, long story short, I have this friend that actually has CPTSD as well, and
Hmm.
they experienced a murder. And I actually I know it was so like when they told me about it, I wasn't because not that much scares me, Courtney. Like I watch true crime, like it's fine. I'm not shocked, but they experienced a murder and they held the person,
Oh my
as they
gosh.
were dying, and they lived with this memory for 2 or 3 years, like, you know, um, and they had to go to court and testify, and so,
Oh my gosh.
like, what I did with them is I took those same techniques and I actually adapted them to pretty much because, like, when I took the techniques and I started thinking about them, because they're like they're techniques that help you scramble the memory and then process it, and especially for like um, neurodivergent brains,
Hmm.
but because it's a murder, it's severe PTSD. So I had to adapt it to put some sprinkles in it, but it worked because I think 3 weeks later, when we did it 3 weeks ago, they they said I don't really. It's not that I don't remember the murder. It's just not as distressing to me anymore. Like, and so
That's awesome.
and that's like I wanted to share that because it's just so beautiful because like there's not that many techniques that I think are well known to process extreme like trauma. You got to think about I think about the
Yeah.
people that have to testify in court and they see these things all the time. They go through sexual assault, murder, and stuff, and then it's like, but who's helping them really end the loop, right? Because
Right.
it's a loop, and I have to do this stuff on myself, like loops with my ex on sexual trauma, and like with my mom. I use these same techniques to kind of break things up, and it just helps you metabolize the memory. All that to say, like I just want to nerd out about neuroscience for a second, but
Go ahead.
the trauma science is very interesting, and so like I think that's an unknown symptom of PTSD is the mental looping, like, and
Hmm.
so yeah, that's pretty much what I want to say because then what you said had me nerding out a bit.
Yep, yep. No, I love it because like it is. The more you know about it and the more techniques that you can learn. And I'm so proud of you for going and being able to like help people and adapt that to them and their situation, because that's incredibly powerful. And it means that you have done a great job to understand it at a very deep level, and shows a lot about your own emotional intelligence to be able to navigate someone through that after having experienced that yourself. So I hope you're proud of yourself because that's really big.
Thank you. Yeah, I am. It's I would say it's an experience to one give myself credit for what I do, and two be open to receiving. That is my lesson.
Hmm.
Especially, I feel like in my experience from healing from trauma, it is a lesson of receiving, to not be so self-protective, but to trust myself and trust the good compliments that I'm getting from people like from you right now. Thank you, because I
Yes.
didn't want to toot my own horn, but also like I like helping people. I like what I do, and I think it's it's probably my OCD, but it's also my emotional intelligence as well. That I like to go in deep about these techniques because like I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
like I could be the person that helps this person and pass it on to the next person. So, you know,
Yep.
like like I definitely would love to tell you about that technique after the podcast because
Yeah.
it's great, but it's yeah, that's pretty much it from my end.
Yeah, no, I get it on the receiving end too. I feel like after having a lot of trauma in your life, you feel like every compliment is a backhanded compliment or there's something else
Yes.
they're
Yeah.
hiding in it. So I get that. Yes, no, and it's really hard. Or even just receiving like somebody gifting you something or, like
Yes.
trying to do something for you and you're like, why? What do you want from me? It's
Exactly.
like
Or
super triggering. So yes, I get that. I am still sometimes catching myself doing the same thing as well. And like you said, deep diving. Um, I 100% agree with you. But I think though, um, and I don't know if you agree, but I think that like once you get to the point where you have the opportunity to learn about this, for me, the more I can make it logical, the better I can get through like these emotions when they hit.
yes.
So like I'm very much a curious person, and so the more I can understand what's actually driving what I'm going through, I'm like, oh,
Yes.
nope, remember this is what's happening. So ground yourself, take a deep breath, remember what they taught you, and then just it really helps you like deepen that um, skill set and be able to like navigate it because you can't be in therapy all the time every time you get
No.
triggered.
No.
So you really like therapy's great, but you still have to do a ton of work outside of that, to be able to like actually implement that in your everyday life and be able to navigate through the pitfalls that are going to happen.
I like that you said that too because that was that. I mean that is my mindset is that I know that therapy's expensive or it's okay depending on if you're insurance or not. But either way, I would like to. My goal was to not be in therapy like lifetime.
Yes.
I'm open to doing it throughout my life, but not. I want to be self sufficient, and I've gotten there now. But I would still go to therapy. But I like what you said, like logical. But I notice with me, I can intellectualize things, so I try not to over intellectualize things where I'm like, I get the mechanisms, but is this getting me emotional relief? Like,
Right.
um, and so and so I give you kudos too for sticking with your work because most people show up to therapy, but they're not showing up to therapy. Um,
Yeah.
they're paying their therapist to vent to. They are I think I heard something in maybe one of my Shane books. I think it's called From Beverly Engel. Uh, I gotta see the title of that book again. But she was saying that um, the amount of time it takes to heal if you don't do anything you don't heal. If you do self help books, it takes you a couple decades. If you do therapy only, it takes you maybe a couple years, 5 to 7. And if you do self help plus therapy, it could take you 2 to 3 years. And so she put that timeline in context because she was saying like, look, if they're not doing their work, they're not for you.
Hmm.
Like they have to be committed to doing it. And I think even then, like it's about for me, if I'm looking for a new partner or even like a new friend, it's really just about like what work have you done? Are you committed to it? What's your attitude? Really, what's your attitudes about mental health? Like, are you resistant
Right.
to it? Like, why have you gone to therapy? What did you learn about yourself? And I'll see these things over time because I'm looking for somebody who's actively working on themselves, and I have to say that out loud because I have to believe that it's true that people are out there, but I recognize that we're also in the 1% of people that actually actively do that because we have something at stake. We
Yes.
care. Um, for you, what is it that keeps you driving towards your growth? Like, why do you keep going even though the days when you don't want to?
So obviously my kids, I think my kids were overall like really the heroes in that entire story and what really drove me to get out because I finally had someone that I could save, and I don't know if that, I don't mean to say that it was like a hero complex, but it's like I could end this. I could end this cycle. I could make sure that my kids don't have to go through what I went through. Like they can learn to be loved just for being, and they can learn that they don't have to earn that from anyone, and they don't have to live in a household where people are screaming and punching through drywall and throwing things around the house when they're angry, and I was like, wow, like it was really healing experience for myself. But it was like very, very empowering, to be able to do that for my own children when I didn't have anyone that would have done the same. I think I've seen a quote before where it's like, I became the person I needed as a child, and that's my biggest flex. And so, there's that. But then, um, one of the things that I very frequently tell myself is that some people have to go through a lot to come out the other side and to speak, you know? There's still going to be a lot of ugly in the world. There's still going to be a lot of painful things. And I think that sometimes I have to look for the beauty in what I've experienced myself. And a lot of times that beauty is being able to advocate for someone else or make them feel not alone in a world that they've felt alone in for a really long time, or help them release that shame, or even just find the strength to leave, to fight back for themselves, like understanding that there is something on the other side, and you will make it. It's going to hurt and it's going to suck to get through some of it, 100%, but that is so much less painful and so much shorter timeline than staying and enduring all of that. So I think that that's really what keeps me going and keeps me fighting to keep getting better, is that I want to see my children and their children, and everyone being happy and well and living a life that's worth living.
I like that. So basically, this is you stepping into like an empowered life, like essentially. And I think that's something to talk about, because some people may be stuck in the trauma loops and they may feel like, hey, like I really don't know if I can do this, but you can. Like,
You can, yes.
and I'm not saying you're gonna do it today, but you can, because I every day I don't think that I could have gotten here without believing that the next day could get better, even if that wasn't true in that moment. Like, there were very much times where I wanted to kill myself. I was, suicidal. Like, there were times when, like, when I was younger, I don't think I would actually believe you if I think things would have got better. Like, that I get a job, that I mean so much to people, like that I take so much joy out of life now, even out of the simple things. Like, when you go through something fucked up, like you enjoy the simple things, like just the peace and quiet. You enjoy
Yes.
music. You enjoy a fun TV show. Driving in.
Sitting out on the deck when it's cool and it's nice outside.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
all of those things matter. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like, what were things that you like really loved reconnecting with, like after you moved out and
Um,
you were in your healing era?
my poetry. I had really not done that for a long time, and a lot of the poetry that I had tried to write was really dark, just because of still going through it. Because I don't know, I kind of like to use poetry as almost like that's my version of a paintbrush. I'm gonna take whatever I'm feeling and I want to paint a picture, so that way if you felt it, or even if you haven't, you can see what I'm seeing at a different, angle. But that way I'm kind of immersing you into it and giving you the chance to really see what that emotion looks like. What it would be like. Not that I'm trying to like make someone feel pain, but just to give people that experience, to give empathy for others, because I think sometimes we are lacking that in the world. Um, and my music, I love music. I didn't watch TV probably a good 5 years. I couldn't even sit down and try. I didn't know what to watch. I would doom scroll. I wasn't allowed to watch TV. I didn't have the time to watch TV. But I also wasn't allowed to listen to my own music because it was always blaring somewhere else. So that was what kept me sane in a lot of the first really raw moments, and finally walking out and choosing myself and my kids finally. Um, my music is everything. I was in like the top 1% of Spotify listeners one year because I listened to so much music. So that was it. The peace, like you said, like having a quiet home, that was also really big to me. Or I'm a big fan. I love being outside, like especially when the weather's nice. As soon as I moved into my house, I went and bought like patio furniture, and I sit there at night and under the stars, and I just breathe, and it's like liberating, and it feels so good to me. Like it's just all of those little things, having that peace, having my own music, and my home's not trashed and somebody's, home all day destroying it, so that way I have to dive into that. Like I can come home, I can control my home, and the way that it functions, the way that, everything happens here. Not that I'm a control freak, but it's just I don't have someone causing chaos inside of it. And the one thing is there's no like rage in my home. And that was one of the biggest things for me, because I have never had a place where I walk into and I immediately let go. Like this is the first place I've ever lived where I was like, I'm home, thank God. Like, like you just take that deep breath. I never had that, like this is the first home I've ever had that in. And so that I remember the day I moved in here and I was jamming my music. My kids were running around. They were so excited because when we had originally left, we left with nothing but the clothes on our back, and we had to stay at my sister's house for a few months. And they're running wild. I cried. Like I was so happy, and I realized I was like, this is my home. Like this is my safe place. And I finally made it for myself, but I also gave it to my kids, and that was a beautiful feeling.
Wow. Yeah, this it sounds beautiful in the sense that you reclaimed a lot of joy. It sounds like.
Yes, yes, like living in the moment and really, appreciating the small things.
Tell everyone more about your poetry, because I mean I've experienced it, but I want everybody else to hear the beauty of it.
Yeah, so like I said, I kind of try to immerse, like my audience, readers, listeners, however that goes. Um, I think that there is beauty to dark things, but you have to be able to find it. And I think that it's one of those things that can become a beacon if you know how to use it. Like so I had my dark moments because I wanted to come out and shout it and say, hey, this is a real thing. People are going through it, and it's allowed to. You're allowed to say it sucks. You're allowed to say that you went through
Right.
some things, and you're allowed to channel pain into power. My thing, I always have to look for the beauty out of something, and that's probably a trauma response. Like I have to find some kind of like reason that this happened or whatever it is. Um, and mine is I take some of my most painful experiences and I turn them into something beautiful that I can share with people. And it doesn't hurt them. It's not a hurtful. Some of my poetry definitely dives into the deeper, darker places, but some of it is a lot more light and, wholesome, I think. So it's a way that I can take everything that I've experienced, all the nasty, I can process it, and then I can share it with other people and make them feel whatever it is they need to feel from it, or make them um, sit there with themselves and I would have never been able to put words to this, like I would have never been able to explain this, because I think sometimes that's part of going through trauma is you don't really know how to process it too. So it's being able to hear somebody say those things, kind of like I was telling you when I saw the things with that Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, I was
Yes.
like, oh my God, it was validating for me, so I know it's not the same thing, but I really just want, I just want to be, I want people to feel, and I don't want people to be afraid to feel. Because I think a lot of it is like we all just look for like those instant gratifications and, surface deep things, and a lot of times, and I still enjoy like comedy and all the other things that are out there too. But I think the more that we can tune into the human element and have, feel those emotions, I think that that drives a lot of change in a positive way, because if we stop numbing out, I think we will start having a lot less people who feel comfortable hurting people, because they're going to feel, if you love someone, you don't hurt them without feeling awful. And then one of my biggest things is I think abusers are entirely too comfortable to continue what they're doing because of the silence that protects them.
Exactly.
So if I
Exactly.
can turn something, yes, if I can be the one that's going to call you out or make you feel uncomfortable to the point that you're going to second think hurting someone, that's good enough. That's all I ever needed
Yeah.
out of what out of the work. That in itself is a victory.
And that's why I like a lot of your poetry because it is exposing the patterns of like narcissism and abuse, and
Yes.
you'll see that in my poetry too because I think when you're calling out narcissists, like it's just too easy for people to be like, well, you're just calling them a narcissist because X Y Z, so I don't call them a narcissist. I just point out the patterns that they do. That always that's always
Yep.
genius.
Yep.
And so I think it's about, for me, making a narcissist free, abuser free society, but narcissist free society. And the only way we can do that is by exposing the patterns, but also saying anybody that is silent is complicit. You are, as far as I'm
Yes.
concerned, you are on the side, you are on their side because when I was doing my poetry, what came up for me was like, people saw the abuse between my ex and my mom, but nobody said shit. And what I'm tired of nowadays is people trying to not put themselves in the situation, distance themselves, thinking that that's helping anybody, but it's not. Like, speak up or just say you're on their side. But we're gonna force clarity at this point.
Yeah. Yes. I love that. Yes, because it is. It's when you choose silence, you choose the other side. I mean, realistically, that's what it boils down to. And in that same breath, they are excusing what these people have done because they're like, but that's my family, or but that's my, I don't care. If you were my brother, sister, cousin, uncle, and I knew that you were, going around hurting other people, do not try to come and communicate with me or
Yeah,
be a part of my life because I will choose their side every single time. And the more that we continue to allow these excuses and enablers, it's never going to change. These people are still going to continue to hurt other people. Like, I 100% agree with you in that the silence is their protection, and we've got to stop letting it happen. We have to be able, like you, the power of the narrative. We have to be able to speak
yes,
our truth, take power of the narrative, but we're actually speaking facts. This is no smear campaigns. We're not trying to hurt anyone. We are just strictly trying to, like you said, speak on the patterns, educate people, so that way when they're questioning, is this possibly a toxic
I'm
or
like,
abusive
yes, he's
situation?
abusive. Leave.
Yes, exactly. Like, and education is key. The more that you can equip someone with emotional intelligence, the safer that they are out in that world. So it's important to do that for everybody else.
I wanted to ask too. I wanted to ask because once somebody experiences the patterns of abuse and they start to acknowledge it, how would you recommend they safely leave their situation? Because I've seen some things online about how you have like, to take the clothes in the laundry basket that you usually have. Those are the ones you most frequently wear. But maybe there's advice that you have, especially for mothers, to safely like part. If you don't, that's okay because we can just link resources.
Yeah. So, a couple suggestions. Yes, taking the clothes in the laundry basket. I would say take the absolute bare essentials and go wherever you need to go. If it's a shelter, that would help you get back on your feet. If you are fortunate enough to have family or friends that would support you, go. Don't worry about anything. Leave it all because none of it matters in the grand scheme of things. You can replace every single item in your home, but you cannot replace you or your children or your peace or your emotional well-being. So at the end of the day, I know it's really hard. I had to do it as well, but just go. Just take the absolute bare minimum. Also, if you're able to, because I know some people aren't, take the opportunity while they're not in the home. If
Yes.
you are able to, if they're at work or something like that, you need to move fast and you need to have a plan on exactly what you're going to take and you need to go. But you also need to, at that point, go zero contact until you've established that that's going to be a secure place for you. And I understand with children and things like that, it's hard. I've been through it, but shut it down. Shut it down until you allow yourself to feel safe in that new environment. Give yourself an adjustment period if it's like a couple days, what have you. Don't immediately give them access to come find you and your children. Work out public places for you to meet up and co-parent with the children, or if it's you need to exchange the children. That sounds weird because it's like you're exchanging a
No, it's fine.
product or
Yeah.
good. Um, but you have to safeguard yourself, and you just you have to have anybody around you that you trust that's going to hear you in all of the crazy things that you're going to say, or you're going to feel like it's crazy, but you need somebody to validate you because you're really not crazy. You're breaking free from mental hell, like it's hard. And you're going to have those abusive people reaching back out. You took my kids from me. You did this, and you're the problem, and you did all of these things. And yeah, you need to come back. They'll blackmail you. You know, like they'll find every way they can. So you have to reach out to whomever it is that you can trust. If it's a therapist, somebody, you know, friend, family, or hell, hit me up on TikTok. I will be the
Yeah.
one to listen to
Put the
you.
link
You
in
know
the
what I mean?
TikTok.
Like find me on my socials. Yes, I will guide you through it the best of my ability. But don't go alone. You don't go through that part alone. Reach out. You just have the faith that somebody's going to listen, because people do care. When you finally speak up and you finally tell the truth, the people that love you, or the people that have experienced themselves, they will be very welcoming to support you through that.
Thank you, Courtney. I also wanted to add too that I think the statistic is that people go back to their relationships about 7 times before they leave. It's so that's why I amplify what Courtney says, especially about once you leave, make that the final time, because like
Yes.
it gets more dangerous every time you go back, and so and abuse escalates as well, and there's a psychological component to it where it's like I think it's like a Stockholm syndrome thing where you're identifying with your
Yep.
abuser, and so it's
Yep.
psychologically hard to leave, but it can be done, and so I like to put that out there too, because we put a lot of like blame onto the victim, which induces shame, which is like I'm sure what you're going through and what I go through as well, and so but it's like it's not all the victim's fault. There's a psychology component to it, but there like the things you mentioned are very tenable things that people could do to like just go. Like you pretty much have to be the most. Yeah, you got to be in callous mode at that point. You have to be calculating callous. Like I cannot look back. I cannot, plan, move on. Do not feel sorry for them. I need to protect myself.
Yep.
Self-preservation.
Yes, and post-separation abuse is a real thing too. So that's why I say if you can go, the more you can limit that contact, or the more that you can make the interactions that you do have to have public, or have some kind of third party there. We all know that a lot of narcissistic individuals don't like to put on a show for the world. They like to, a lot of them are covert. So
Hmm.
they're not going to blast themselves in that sense. So they're going to be a lot more reserved, and you are going to be a lot more protected if you have witnesses in those situations. And so, yes, post separation abuse is a real thing, and a lot of people go through it. And Stockholm syndrome, 100%, that trauma bond. And I will be straightforward that it was painful to break that. That was not. It's literally your brain treats it like an addiction, and so you need to be aware that all of those painful things and all those things that you're going through, and you're like, maybe this is the wrong thing. No, it's not. It's not. All of those painful things that you're going to experience and all of those moments that you're going to go through, they're going to be so beautiful on the other side. So stay strong and trust yourself.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And please reach out to Courtney if or me as well. I mean, I'm on TikTok.
Yes.
I'm on a lot of things, and
Yes.
then reach out to Courtney as well. I want to ask something, Courtney, because I know you mentioned in your poetry that it's dark, so you try to make it not so dark. But what truth still lives in your poetry, in your voice, that you're still a little hesitant to claim, that you want to claim in this moment?
Oh, goodness. That is a really good question.
Take your time.
Yeah. Um, I think my truth that I'm still working to reclaim is my power.
Hmm.
I'm working on it, and I have to a certain extent. But I've always been the one that I wanted to hide back in the shadows and just, silently make my moves, because I was too afraid to say, like, I am capable of what I am, especially at like an emotional intelligence level, or even on an intellectual level. So really being able to say, I have done amazing things. Like I have come through so much, and I've done a ton to, heal myself, heal my children, um, change the complete trajectory of my bloodline at this point from both sides for my children. Um, so I think I'm still really working on reclaiming my own power in that sense, and not being so timid to speak on my triumphs.
Yeah, and it sounds like that's part of your power is amplifying what you do instead of what you're not doing or haven't done just yet, which is still a trauma thing. Because I was telling you, like I have trouble claiming all of me. It's like claiming all of you, like all that you do.
Yes.
Afraid of looking narcissistic, but I'm not a narcissist. You're not a narcissist. Um,
Yeah, if you're even questioning that you're a narcissist, that's usually a very good sign
you
because narcissists are not self-aware at all.
exactly,
So that's one of the things that gave me peace too, because I was like, am I really the crazy? Like, am I crazy? Was I a narcissist? So just even having that thought
exactly,
says plenty.
exactly. Lack of self-awareness in narcissists. The key sign that you're not
Yes.
a narcissist. Also with serial killers, but that's another podcast episode.
Oh goodness, yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, the narcissist that I dealt with obviously is not officially diagnosed having seen anyone, because they don't do that. But multiple professionals have told me very much suspected to have antisocial and narcissistic personality disorders, which makes them one of the most dangerous types of narcissists that you can actually interact with
Oh
because
boy.
they are completely, there's no empathy. They're completely void of like even seeing you as a human, basically at that point, or having any guilt, shame, emotion. You are strictly used as a tool, benefit. There's a
That's
lot.
scary.
There's a lot there, so I had to go through that, and so yeah, it's definitely important that I reminded myself I did have empathy and I did question and I did wonder if there was things I could have done better and um, that's not always the case on the other side, and that's one of the things that you can take and I think find peace in too, is that if you're able to look at yourself, ask what you've done wrong, ask if maybe you were a problem, that itself is telling you that there is so much hope for you and you are going to be fine.
Uh, what are you proud of today that no one ever validated back then?
Oh goodness.
I know I'm hitting you with some heavy questions.
Yeah, no, it's good. I like it. Like I think it's important that we are honest and we can share this with
Yeah.
people because I feel like it's important. Um, what am I proud of that no one validated back then? Like something that I had done back then and or something that I've done since leaving that situation.
I'll leave it up to you, actually.
I'm proud of how well I kept myself together for my children under the abuse that I was actually enduring.
Hmm.
I don't think people understood how bad it got. Um, I didn't walk around with bruises. I would literally be locked in a room and told that if I tried to leave and take my children, I was going to be committed because he was going to say that I was emotionally unstable and not allowed to take my children. Uh, I went through a lot. I went through a lot. I shouldered a lot and I hit a lot because I didn't want my children to have that trauma. Obviously, I couldn't save them from all of it. Um, but I don't think anybody ever understood how much I fought to get my kids as protected as they were in that situation. And then outside of that, after, to actually address that, I built an entire support system uh, for my younger children. My older children, we've been able to process on a different level. Obviously, they're adults now. But the younger children, I went and I got the school social worker, the school therapist. There's an actual like therapist that comes and meets at his school. We have daily check-ins. I text his therapist all the time. We align on our goals. So I think that's one thing I didn't give myself enough credit for, and I think that you know, um, especially in two of the children I was fighting so hard to protect, I didn't even birth. Like they're my children by all means. I don't mean to say that there's anything different in my eyes. Um, but I got discredited for how strong I really was through all of it, and it was not the trauma making me strong, it was my heart.
And that's the key in the end is that it was your heart making you stronger, you, you know, not the trauma. And it is that is a beautiful that how do I put it? That is a beautiful thing to say. Like it is your heart, which is what I
Yeah.
saw throughout the whole episode. Is that it's really your heart that kept you like it's strong people can carry their heart and their pain, you know. And I think what you're saying is beautiful. Like and
Thank you.
I have to. Let me see. I'm gonna marinate on that for a second.
Yeah, no, you're okay. One of the things you were saying is like strong people, and I think you should also enjoy this for yourself because I think you've done a ton to become who you are and not be like the ones that abused you. Um, One of the things I tell myself is superheroes and villains have the same backstory. Think
Yes,
about that one.
I am. Lex Luthor and Superman, because I'm a huge
Yep, because
Superman.
this, yeah, well, so just so you know, one of my sons is named Kal-El, so if you're a huge Superman, I
Really?
think you might get that one.
I
Mm-hmm.
okay. I mean, I know Kal-El, that's his name, but oh, I didn't even know
Yep.
that. Like, so did you decide to just name him Kal-El?
I actually was trying to fight it because it's kind of an odd name, and still to this day we still struggle with people. He gets called Kale or Khalil, like whatever it is. Um, but I at least got it so it wasn't hyphenated, so it was like all like one name.
Okay.
But yeah, like I couldn't picture him as anyone else. You know what I mean?
Man.
Like I didn't hate the name. It was just like I knew he was gonna have that struggle. That like, how do you pronounce that? Or what? I'm sorry, what was that? But he really is. He's like my little Superman, and I don't think he knows sometimes how important he is and how much he did save me. So I love that that's who, that's his name. So he was definitely a superhero for me.
That is so good. That made me feel really good. Not only because I love Superman, but I also love your story as well.
Yeah,
Is there is there anything you'd say to the version of you who stayed in that house hoping it would change?
I love you, and you're strong, and thank you for getting me to where I am because I did not love myself at all, and I think that that was the problem. And I think if I could go back and I could tell myself that I was worthy of love and that I love her and that I'm grateful that she stayed as strong as she did, that's what I would tell her because I knew when I was that person, I didn't believe any of that.
Wow. It's such a testament to your strength for you to come to that record, to that moment right now where you do believe that, and and to admit that you're still. Some days you don't believe it, and that's okay. Most, you know, it's a process, and I think for me, what I would validate myself on that I wish people did back then was how strong I was. Like, I was
Hmm.
going through a lot of shit. I was taking care of my sister with special needs, enduring my mom, and I'm first generation college student. I feel like overcoming poverty, blah blah blah, not narcissist boyfriend, but throughout that, I feel like
Breaking cycles, yes,
breaking
doing all the good
cycles.
things,
Yeah,
yes.
I'm a fighter, resilient. It's not about the struggle. It's about. I feel like it's about shit, different situation, same Jacob. I'm just gonna overcome this like last time. Like there's this gradual trust in myself that I get every time I overcome something that you know I have resilience, and I feel like if I went back and like talked to myself with the person I stayed with, my ex boyfriend, I'd be like, you hoped, you had hope, you gave him chances, and that's a reflection on your heart. And it's okay if it ended that way, but I'm glad you stayed because we learned so much, and because I love learning. I love the
Hmm.
data that I picked up, and you know, I don't blame myself as much as I used to. I don't have that shame as much as I used to,
Good.
and
Yes.
I tell them that it's gonna be okay. It was a good experience, but next time we get with somebody, we're locking down a husband, not a, we need to knock down husband.
Yes.
And
Not somebody else's problem. Yeah, it's
no,
like
how do I put it? Like not somebody else's, not somebody else's narcissistic son. Like I don't need them stressing me
yes.
out.
Yes. Yes. Not a problem. You want a partner.
Yes, exactly, exactly. So that being said, is there love on the horizon right now for Courtney, or are you taking a break from it while you're healing?
Taking a break from it while I'm healing. I've decided that it was more important to love myself and my life as myself, and really get in tune with that, and then also to focus on my children because there was so much that I had to unpack for them that they deserved that, and unfortunately I am the only parent that's still showing up, and I have been doing this alone, um, with nothing but a few setbacks
Yeah.
from the other, along the way. So my kids are young. The two younger ones, they won't always be, but this is my opportunity to rewrite history for them, and I think that they deserved me um, fully showing up and worrying more about them instead of trying to date and potentially running into a bad relationship or, having my feelings hurt and then I'm not as present as I should be with them. It won't always be that way. Maybe someday. I guess I'd be a lot more open to it now than I was when I first left. But it's not something I am actively chasing, no. I love my life, and I think when my person comes along, we will just very well be complements to each other's lives, um, and bring peace to each other. Like, because that's what I think was one of my most important things is that I wanted to become what I wanted from a partner, because I can't ask you for something that I wouldn't be able to give you. So it was really important to me to like find that grounding and that peace in myself, so that way I'm not going to cause chaos in another person's life.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're. I gotta get my charger. It sounds like you're very whole in yourself, and it definitely sounds like that you're being intentional. That you're not walled off from it, but at the same time, you're focusing on your kids and being very mindful about what you bring into their lives as well. And that's
Uh,
something that. Oh, go ahead.
no, no, go ahead. I was agreeing. I apologize.
No, you're good. Um, No, that's something I have to be mindful of too, because I'm a single male and I don't have kids. But for me, my mindfulness is around like, okay, next relationship, I need to know if they're trying to, they're intending on getting married or this is just for fun. But also, when it boils down to it, they need to complement my life. Um, I struggled
Hmm.
so hard to be somebody that I wasn't for my ex, and just felt like I was giving up a lot of myself. I feel like you said, the person that comes along, they will click, and I'm not really too pressed about it because for me, as I live my own life, the right people will come along, and you know what? I have a dog. I live a bachelor's life. I will be okay.
Hmm.
I will get attentions from somewhere. I have video games. I have a podcast. I have a lot of things that keep me busy. So, men are a distraction. No, I'm kidding. Um, but, my gosh, Courtney, this was amazing. This is an amazing podcast. I really enjoyed having you on. Do you have any final words for the audience or anything at all?
Don't ever lose sight of how amazing and how strong you are, and do not give it credit to any of the hurt that you've ever been through because you got yourself through that. And I just want people to walk in that power more.
Thank you, Courtney. Um, My call to action for this episode is to comment about how you walk in your power and how healings looked for you. Did it look messy? Did it look fabulous and you had no issues and it was a very linear path? Yeah, right. Um, but
Yeah, and tell me how you did that because I'm curious.
exactly, I want to know everything. But
Yes.
tell us how healing looked for you. And I hope I see a new country on there. Comment your countries as well because I was really surprised to see Peru, UK, and Spain on my analytics. And so, yeah, that is it. And this has been another episode of Power of the Narrative. Join us next time for, I don't think Sylvia the psychic is coming next time. I don't know who's coming next time. We'll see. But this has been another episode of Power of the Narrative. Thank you so much, and thank you, Courtney, for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, bye everyone.